Oh man, this tea is piping hot. Hey guys, Dani here, and welcome to my little corner of the internet. I'm pretty sure by now everyone knows that there is drama going down between Artist of the Decade Taylor Swift and Scooter Braun. I wanted to wait until after the AMA performance and see how all of that panned out before I made this video breaking down everything that has happened, everything that is going on, and what that means for the future of the music industry. This all started back in November of 2018 when Taylor Swift posted this photo announcing that she would be leaving her record label, Big Machine, that she has been with since the beginning of her career, and moving on to Universal Music Group. So the two most important parts about this post in particular are these parts. So right here where she says, "It is also incredibly exciting to know that I'll own all of my master recordings that I'll make from now on," implying that she hasn't owned her masters up until that point. And this section here where she says, "I want to express my heartfelt thanks to Scott Borchetta for believing in me as a 14-year-old and for guiding me through over a decade of work that I will always be so proud of." This implied that the two left on good terms and everything would be fine. For those who don't know, master recordings are the first copy of the final mix of any song or album, and from that copy, all future copies of the album or song would be printed from. Scott Borchetta is the founder of Big Machine Records, and although Taylor Swift was moving to Universal Music Group, the master recordings for all 6 of her previous albums were left in the hands of Scott Borchetta at Big Machine. It is also important to note that Scott Swift, Taylor's dad, is a shareholder in Big Machine Records. I am going to refer to him as Poppa Swift for the rest of this video just because there are far too many Scotts and Scooters and they all sound the same and it's going to get confusing. So Taylor Swift's dad is Poppa Swift. He is a shareholder in Big Machine Records, meaning that he should know anything that is really happening with the label in terms of selling things, that sort of stuff. That's important for later. Now, fast forward to June of 2019, and Taylor made this really lengthy Tumblr post. Also, way to make Tumblr relevant again for like 2 seconds. I'll post a screen recording of the entire conversation that you can pause to read, but I'm only going to read you the most important parts. It'll also be linked in the description if you want to read the full thing for yourself. So the standout parts are where she says, quote, "I knew once I signed that contract, Scott would sell the label, thereby selling me and my future." Also, quote, "This is my worst case scenario, and loyalty is clearly just a contractual concept, and anytime Scott has heard the words Scooter Braun escape my lips is when I was either crying or trying not to." So I do want to clear up a misconception that I have seen floating around the internet that Scott Borchetta sold Taylor Swift's masters. He didn't sell specifically Taylor's masters. He sold the entire record label. So everyone who was on the record label, everyone's masters were sold to one person. So this wasn't just like a personal vendetta type thing against Taylor Swift. This was like a whole business deal for Big Machine. So knowing that, it might not necessarily be that like Scott wanted to hurt Taylor, so he sold her masters to someone that she hated. It very well might have been the best business decision or the best deal that he got for his label and was best for his company at the time. That being said, while Big Machine had other big names like Sheryl Crow and Lady Antebellum, it is very, very clear that Taylor Swift was the most valuable asset on that label. So her masters, in turn, would be the most valuable asset on the wholesaling situation. And just based on the vitriolic reaction that Taylor had to her music being sold to Braun, and the fact that in her own statement, she said that she knew that the label was going to be sold, I am sure that there was a conversation that was had at some point that Taylor did not want her music going to Braun. When this all came to light, I was at first very highly confused because, like I just said, Taylor Swift's music made up 80% of Big Machine's revenue, and Poppa Swift is a shareholder. And big deals like this selling record labels take way more than the 6-ish months between when Taylor announced that she was leaving Big Machine and when she posted this angry post on Tumblr. This would mean that these types of deals would have been in talks when Taylor was renegotiating her contract. And that may be one of the reasons why she chose to leave. And or she knew that if she chose to leave, the record label wouldn't be able to stay afloat without her revenue, so that it would most likely have been sold. So that would have clearly been a part of the decision making that she was doing. Things had pretty much calmed down after that until it was announced that Taylor was going to win the Artist of the Decade award at the AMAs. And it is very common for when artists are winning awards like Artist of the Decade, Artist of the Century, Lifetime Achievement Award, if they're performing, they would perform a variety of hits throughout their entire career. So it is super normal for if Taylor was winning if she was winning Artist of the Decade, it's kind of expected for her to be singing her hits through all of her albums. So on November 14th, Taylor posted on Twitter and Facebook this whole thing, which basically said that Scott and Scooter were preventing her from performing her older songs at the AMAs and basically trying to blackmail her out of re-recording her songs. A bunch of other artists came out in support of Taylor. I will post some of those here, as well as the Swifties came for Scott and Scooter, so they eventually backed down. Taylor ultimately got to perform her old songs, sprinkling a little bit of extra shade with her outfit choice, but it is clear that the war is not over. To be fair to both sides, I am going to read to you Scott's statement about some of the events that have been going down. Scott claims that he and Taylor were negotiating her new contract, that he was agreeing to sign over all of her assets, including her old masters, if she re-signed with Big Machine. He claims that he offered her the best deal that he could for the size of his company. Taylor chose to go to UMG. They stayed friends. He decided to sell. He told Taylor the day before the sale was supposed to be made public. Taylor apparently knew Scott and Scooter were friends, so he's confused as to why Taylor is upset. He does mention in his whole spiel that Taylor had refused several events put on by Scooter, which to me sounds very suspicious, especially because one of them was that big Manchester charity event after those bombings. So it's a little weird that Taylor was consistently rejecting any event that Scooter was a part of, which leads me to believe that he did know that there was bad blood between the two of them. So if Scott knew that there was an issue between Taylor and Scooter, and she is the biggest revenue source, even though she's left, making your name and the biggest revenue source for your record label, in my opinion, I think that a text before 9:06, the night before it's supposed to be made public that this person's music is going to be sold to someone that she doesn't like and doesn't trust, is probably warranted. He made it seem like it was like a courtesy, he didn't have to, but there's respect, at least there should be respect in the music industry. And if you're just as buddy-buddy as you say you are, and the fact that her father is a shareholder, and the fact that you have literally known this girl since she was 14 years old, and she'll be 30 next month, I think that you should probably text someone and let them know that even the sale was a possibility before even just texting her and letting her know, oh, it's going to be made public tomorrow. As for the deal, he's mentioning to give Taylor all of her assets and her masters, and he's claiming that she had plenty of opportunity to buy back her masters. If you actually look at the screenshot that he attached, this is what it says. Agreed, provided that Taylor's masters would be subject to any contracts Big Machine already had. We don't know what those other contracts may be, and potentially they could have been very detrimental to Taylor's career. And basically, up until when that contract is signed, Big Machine could realistically go behind her back, make any deals that they wanted to, and she would have to abide by those deals. So not really owning her own masters. It only looks like she owns her own masters, if that makes sense. And Scott said it himself. He gave Taylor the deal that he could afford because he is a small label and he obviously has responsibilities to other artists and to his family and to his employees. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was a good deal that matched the worth of Taylor Swift. She's the artist of the decade. She's one of the biggest artists out there. So I'm not surprised if that deal was not good at all. And if you go back to the screenshot, it says for the next decade. So Taylor could have been left with not a lot of money, obviously in relative terms, but not the money that she deserves for the next 10 years. And we know that females in any industry have a shorter shelf life than males. So I'm sure that all of that went into her consideration for why she chose to not go with the contract. We'll see how the rest of this unfolds in the coming months, especially with Taylor's Loverfest/tour thing, as well as the Netflix documentary. Will she be able to use and play her old songs in those venues? Or did Scooter and Scott just say that she could do the AMA performance just to save face because everyone was so upset and so angry? I would also like to address the mocking by Justin Bieber and his foolishness. If you are not completely familiar with the situation, don't speak on it, in my opinion. And even if you are completely aware of a situation, not everything that goes on behind the scenes needs to be made public. And I know that he was trying to defend someone that he cares about. He cares about Scooter Braun. Scooter Braun helped build his career. I get that. But there's a way to go about saying that you support someone without mocking somebody else. And I feel like that was just so unnecessary. The moral of the story for every single musician and artist out there is never give away the rights to your masters. This is super important. That is where a lot of the money is. That is basically the ownership of the song. Yes, you may own the copyright, but you can have a copyright all you want. If you cannot print more CDs, if you cannot make more vinyls, if you cannot perform your music because somebody else owns the masters, then what is the point of owning the copyright? So it is clearly very important for both established and up-and-coming artists and musicians to realize the value of their masters, and when negotiating contracts, do whatever you can to always keep the rights to your own masters. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and also consider hitting that subscribe button down below for weekly music content. I am also going to link my playlist of other Taylor Swift related videos. Yes, I do a lot of Taylor Swift related videos because she was like the first singer that when I was younger, that I got really obsessed with and became a super fan of. So I know a lot of information, probably too much information about Taylor Swift, which makes it easier and more fun for me to make such videos. I will see you guys again next week. Bye.